Well, I just,
right?
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
so
Here
it
we go.
should be happening. Okay.
All right. Right. So we're starting with the presentation. So this is a short overview of the technique that I'm using. So I'm putting together something called Jupyter Book, and Jupyter Book is like a software that is that converts MD, TXT, and notebook files into static HTML assets. And we also have the Google Colab on the side. We have our GitHub Pages. GitHub Pages is basically a platform. Like, it isn't really a platform. It's a feature that GitHub is providing for users so that they can host websites on the GitHub. And this is the same methodology that Julio is using to host our GitHub version of the website. And we also have GitHub workflows. So GitHub workflows are basically continuous integration and continuous deployment techniques. And what it is, it means that based on the events that we have on one repository, for example, if somebody makes a push on the repository or there's a PR on the repository, GitHub has this sort of runners and they automatically start running programs on your repository, right? So if we put together these techniques or these methodologies that we have, we would be able to develop this sort of thing like a workflow for our website. So the way that it works is that when we initiate that workflow for the first time, it's going to create two new branches on the repository. One of them I'm calling booklet, like short for the Jupyter book, and the other one is the GitHub pages. So GitHub pages part will be the front of the website. So it just hosts HTML codes. And the booklet part is where we're setting up the config files and the other components that we need to get it to work. Yeah. And the reason that I'm choosing to initiate them on different branches of the repository is that when we're working on our work, maybe some part of the work is not ready to be documented or not ready to be accessible by public. So doing that, we can have control over the content that we're presenting on that website. All right. I guess for that one, I can start showing you all a demo. So there are some restrictions that we have with this methodology. The first one is that the repository that we want to have the website for should be public. We don't have any public repositories beside the one that Yiming had. So I'm just going to show you a demo with that. And maybe for the purpose demonstration, I can just make my own repository public for a couple of minutes and then show that. Right. So the way that it works is that we go
Sorry,
to.
can I interrupt for a sec, Sajad?
Yeah.
So you mentioned Python files and so forth, but some of our repositories are actually MATLAB or C code. So that doesn't really matter, right? You're talking, I mean, you mentioned this is all the documentation, right? So
Yeah.
because but you're using Jupyter notebooks. So
the reason that I'm using Jupyter Book is that we like basically like in the literature, people provide demos for the codes and they need like environments to run it. So they usually do it either on Google Colab or they do it on Binder or these sort of things. And Jupyter Book would allow you to launch your codes on that. But
yeah, so what I'm asking is, does that support, for example, MATLAB? Right?
No, I don't think so. No.
Right. So does that change any for somebody who has a legacy project or even a new project, if it's MATLAB based, does that change anything?
So in terms of just having the website and having the documentations, it doesn't change anything about it. But in terms of being able to launch a demo out of your repository instantly, it changes that. But I guess the reason that we don't have support for it is that MATLAB is really closed sourced. And like all these methodologies that we're using are open source.
For sure.
Right.
But you're using.
In fact,
In fact,
Yeah.
there are kernels for running MATLAB code in Jupyter. The problem is that since this is a server-side technology, you would need to have the MATLAB kernel installed in the server where the Jupyter server is running. Which in the case of MATLAB would require a license.
Yeah.
So we could do
No.
if we're hosting everything in our own servers, but I think that the point I is going to make is that it's possible to run the Jupyter notebook in GitHub's infrastructure. And in that case, I don't think they would be able to we would be able to provide them with the MATLAB license.
Right, but if I understand what Jad's saying is that, well, you're using Yiming's project as an example. Yiming's project is MATLAB, right? So
Yep.
you're showing that you can do. I mean, you're going to demonstrate this on Yiming's project?
Yes. Yeah, that is correct. Yep.
Okay.
Right. Right. So starting with how we would do it is that there is this button called Actions on the top part of your repository. If you click on it, you can you need to click on New Workflow. And then if you scroll down, so we have our own workflow by by our lab, and this is something that I set up. Then you click on config, and you just make a commit. It's going to be a couple of clicks. Error committing. All right. Oh. Right. Something needs to go wrong with demos, right?
Yeah.
Is there any chance that this file already exists and you can't create it again?
Yeah, you might. Oh, yeah. Right. So first we need to remove this part so that we can start from scratch. Right. It's there. So I need to delete the directory. Okay. Right. So from the top. So you go to actions, new workflow, and then you would find our own workflow over here. And then you click on it, and then you commit. There's going to be something called a YML file under this new part that we had. And then again, you go to your actions. There's going to be something called Elder Lab Pages CI/CD. And then you click on Run Workflow on main. And we're just going to give it a couple of seconds to run. So if you look at it, it's actually like doing it's giving us the config files, and it's just installing like the Jupyter book, loading the data, creating the HTML files. I don't think that it's gonna take too much time, maybe like a couple of minutes. Then it's pushing our new changes and it's building a book. And right, it finished, right? So after this part, if we go back to our repository, we can see that we have two new branches. One of them is called the GitHub pages, and the other one is the booklet. So in the GitHub pages, we already have our HTML assets, such as index, objects, and so forth. And in the booklet part, we have just two new files, config and TOC. And I'm going to go back to these two files afterwards. But we don't yet have our website on, right? So for that part, you just need to go to your setting under pages, and this is the GitHub pages part. There is something called deployed from a branch, and we're just going to use our GitHub pages branch, right? Because that was the branch that we chose. Going again back to our actions, we can see that the GitHub pages workflow is just running automatically. And if we just give it a couple of minutes, we're
So
gonna have.
currently, I think Yiming has a project page on the Elder Lab website, right? So this documentation, this GitHub documentation is going to compete with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess these sort of documentations are like complementary to the GitHub website that Julio developed. So the
Actually, I
idea
lied.
was,
Sorry,
yeah,
I think you mean you don't have a project page. You should. So you just have your GitHub.
right. When
Yeah,
it finishes, when the pages finishes, you can see that we have like a website. We have an address, and if you go to it, we have a nice structure for it. It's pretty user friendly. You can change the theme. You can go to your repository from here, and you would have like a set of table of content on the left, depending on how you develop and how you write your README files, right? So this one
So
was,
can I clarify? Can I
yeah,
clarify? So there already existed these HTML files that Yiming had written for GitHub, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're just kind of putting a wrapper on that. Like what's new? Like we
Yeah.
already had HTML documentation. That we're looking at now. Yeah. So
Well, these
reading.
files are MD files, so these are like not really HTML.
Oh,
So
what is
for
an MD file? Sorry for my ignorance. What's an MD file?
MD file is like a text file. So it's just a format that people use to write README files on the GitHub or like other documentations.
Okay.
MD files have these capabilities to like add like headings or like add pictures into them, links, and these sort of things. But the problem with that is with a large project like the pipeline that we have, it is really hard to put everything in one README file, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that one, when you launch the website, first you're gonna convert everything to HTML, and then you're gonna have like this pretty wrap around it, and other people can see it easily. So like because we have different audience, right? Like depending on their project, maybe some people are not that technical and wouldn't be comfortable navigating through GitHub repositories and reading all those documentations, but having a website is just an easy way of dealing with it.
Right.
So
Can
for
I
the
just say
sake of, yeah,
just one thing while we're talking about this? So you mean a very easy thing you could do with Bob's help, perhaps, is on our website, add a project page link to your project, just link out to GitHub, right? Can you do that? It'll take like 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think Bob maybe needs to provide access. How does that work, Bob?
Yeah, I probably uh give him the full access admin or whatever. That should be easy.
Okay. And the same, yeah, I don't know if this applies to anybody else, but we'd like to maintain links to projects off the lab website. But if we're migrating to a GitHub-based documentation, that's fine. But we just want to link out to that, right? Makes sense. The only catch would be like, suppose it's a data set, right? So let's take the Highway 7 data set. It's not really a code repository necessarily. There could be code. So is GitHub the right place for that? Maybe it is. But then we have to link out from GitHub to some repository server, right? Data server. Okay, sorry, Sajid. Keep going.
right. Yeah. So going back to some more details about it. So for example, if Yiming wants to like add more content in the README file, so with his allowance, I'm just gonna like change his README file a bit.
Change
I don't
the
know.
author from Ming Chan to Sajid Savaji, maybe. That'd be.
Yeah, let's do that. No, but like we're gonna add something called test just for demonstration on the at the end of the README file, and then you can commit, and then on your like on your graph on the repository, you are creating this part on the main, right? But it's not yet updated in the booklet part. So the HTMLs are coming from the booklet branch, which is over here. And you can see that that part hasn't changed. So for that part, we need to make a pull request. I need to pull from main to booklet, right? And to do that, we're gonna just go to our pull request part and create a new pull request. So we're going from our main to booklet. And you can see that it says that it is able to merge. So it means that it doesn't have any sort of conflicts. And we're just going to create the pull request. And this one is open. And then we're going to merge it. All right, and it says merged. So if we go back to our code, you can see that on the booklet, we have the test part that I added. And when you do that, so automatically you're going to launch the workflow again, right? So you don't need to initiate it again. So whenever you update your booklet branch, the website is going to keep updating itself without you having to do any further actions on it. It just takes a couple minutes to launch all those processes again and set it on. And then it says, again, the GitHub pages build and deployment workflow is running. So we need to wait for that again.
Okay, while we're waiting, Sajad, this is fantastic. I have to say, I mean, for people that are used to GitHub, I'm sure this is making more sense. For me, I would not be able to remember all of this. So having a README file for the pipeline, the workflow you're talking about would be great if you could write a short how-to doc.
Yeah.
Would that be good? Which raises the question, wouldn't it be nice for the lab to have a small repository of, hot tips for the Elder Lab, an internal folder? Yeah.
We sort of already have that.
Okay.
It's called the Elder Lib repository.
And it's a repository of what? Of docs?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. So you could put it there, right? So that's in, is that in GitHub or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Just as long as everybody knows its existence and knows how to find it. It could include lots of different things. For example, guidelines for qualifying reports for PhD students and that kind of thing. Thesis templates, yeah, anything that the graduate students, for example, have found useful, right, could go there. It should be curated a bit, but any comments on that? Any thoughts? So that, okay. There's some capitalization fixes that have to occur here. Yiming, and MCMLSD. Okay, good.
Great.
What do people
So I
think?
guess just to wrap up the demo that I was showing. So doing that, we can see that we were able to make the change that we intended to. So for Yiming to update his website, he just needs to make the modifications on the MD file, and the rest would be automatic for him. And I just wanted to show that with a larger data set like transplant, how it would be, because I think there's a better example to showcase why wrapping all, like why to go through all of these efforts to have that. Yes, so
So
maybe
do
a
we
couple
have a
more minutes.
GitHub enterprise account? No. Is
No,
that what this? No.
No.
While we wait, I have a question, Sajad.
Yeah.
If I have a project where I have a README file, and then I have other Markdown files in a subfolder, for example, doc,
yeah.
would this workflow be able to find and convert all those other documents to HTML as well, or it's working just on the readme.md
No,
file?
yes, it would. It would. So for instance, actually my documentation for transplant has similar properties. For example, under we have something called docs, and under docs, look, there are a bunch of different README files. And each of them are just addressing different components or of our pipeline. But again, with that, it is able to capture basically any MD, TXT, and notebook files.
What
So
if they're
like
nest? What if they're not? So you have an MD file that links out to another file.
links, yeah. So if you keep the linking correct, for example, so for our repository in the main README file, I'm linking to other guides, other README files that I have, right?
Yeah.
But for linking them, you just need to use like the proper way of linking READMEs in a way that when you click on it, it needs to go to the other MD file that you have under your repository. And if you do that, then again, the linking part would be consistent.
Understands how to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
if you like,
do you use relative addresses for linking the files?
yeah, you need to do relative, yep.
Mhm.
Because if you don't do relative when it's converting to HTML, the link would be a link to GitHub, right? So when you click on it, it would jump to your GitHub instead of going to your website.
That should go in the doc.
Yeah, that should go into doc. Yeah. So the good part about it is that like if you follow proper ways of developing MD files, which are conventional, you would have like a list of content on the right for your each MD file. And when you go to like different MD files again, you would have the same thing. It would be like, I don't know, like pretty easy to work with users who are not technical. And in terms of linking part, right? So like, for example, because I'm using relative linking, so when you click on it, click on the link, it doesn't go to GitHub, it comes to your website again.
Oh, what does it select at for the name of the links on in the left sidebar? Is it the title of the document or the name of the document?
It's the title. No, it's the name. Yep, it's the name. But you can actually change that. So to modify that part and to customize it for your needs, you need to go to your we can do this part on Yimi's code. So if you go under your booklet branch over here, there are two files. One of them is called table of content. And if when you go under it, it says, so for actually it is not a good idea to do this on this repository because it only has one readme. But like if we go to our transplant repository, and if we go to the table of content file, we can see that the list on the left is actually developed in this way. So you can modify the title as well as the files, the order of the files in any way that you want.
So I can't update this table of content file by hand.
Oh yeah.
But is
For example, I don't know, for counting, we're just gonna change the content to counting title.
But then it has the ability to auto-generate the table of content. This is probably what he was going to say. So
yeah.
if like add a file or something and you regenerate, what happens to your manually edited changes?
Yes, exactly.
So with the first one, the first time that you initiate your booklet or like your website, this part is developed automatically, right? But from that part, so the idea was to make changes in the branch and pull from branch, right? Pull from main. So the main modifications are going to be on the main, but the TOC is not on the main, it's only on the booklet. So if you follow making modification on the main and then make a PR from main to booklet, these changes will not be affected. So whatever you do on this part is going to stay the same thing, even though you keep updating your content.
So after I create after I run the workflow for the first time to create the booklet branch, and I add another markdown file to the repository, I have to manually go in the table of contents file and add an entry for that file.
Oh yeah, you need to do it. But the other option is just remove the booklet branch and just make a new one. So in that way, it will automatically be in there.
I think that the learning is, so the learnable teachable moment here is that it's better not to do what you're doing right now.
Oh
It's
yeah.
better to set it up so that, you know, just follow the convention that follow the right file name convention so that everything can be auto-generated. So if I want to add a new section here, like after reprojection or before reprojection, if I want to have a intrinsic calibration or something section with a new file, then, you know, it's just automatic, right? I add the file with the right file name, and then I don't have to worry about editing this.
Yeah.
Yes, I know this is probably going to be more expensive in terms of processing time, but maybe it's something to consider instead of creating the booklet branch once, and after that, you have to manually maintain it by merging with main and manually updating the control files like the TOC. Maybe the booklet branch should be recreated from scratch every time you run the workflow, if that's possible. And
well,
also it would,
I guess like my point about it is that when you do it automatically, it's going to sort them based on the alphabetical order, right? But when you're creating your website, so this is actually was a point that James made when I first showed my website to him. He said that why the order is changed. So the order that I'm presenting over here is not consistent with my code. And frankly, like there's no way that we can do it automatically because it varies based on the repository and based on the code that you're doing. So that TLC file.
Wait. Can't you add a number to the file name?
Yep. Yeah, you can do that. Yep.
Yeah.
So if you,
so like a section number, right?
Yep. If you number them, they would be arranged in order. But again, another reason that I had for having a separate branch for our front was that as we keep like developing our codes, things might get messy like underneath the hood. But we want to have a stable front that people can refer to and like read about and these sort of things. But I thought that maybe having that, like the part that we're presenting, keeping that part separate from our codes and from the development branch would be a good idea.
I see. So you would want to keep the booklet branch so you can evolve it separately from the main branch if needed.
Yeah. But like the manual part would be only to, I don't know, like adding a couple of lines in the table of contents. Like the other parts are completely automatic. Like you wouldn't need to do anything else.
Yeah, this is certainly already a huge time saver as it is, but I'm just spitballing here, and I know this would be a little bit finicky, but if it is even possible. But I was thinking if you could have the TOC be generated automatically every time, and you could have it be ordered by file name, so you could add the numbers. But to have the titles taken from inside the markdown file. I think this would be the ideal arrangement, because then you don't have to manually update the table of content files. And it would do the right thing. If you want a specific ordering, you put numbers at the beginning of the file names. You can set the name in the left sidebar by setting the title that you want in the markdown file.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah. I guess we need to discuss it a little bit more, because I believe like having different names on the table of content and also having a different title for the document is more general. Like in terms of just presenting a document, it doesn't need to, the title and the link that you have on the left doesn't need to be referring on the same name. You might want to have a larger title or more complete, and then like a shorter name for the links on the left. So I thought that like maybe automating it too much just reduces the generalizability and the ability of us to use it again. But I'm not sure if I'm actually able to do it to get
I'm not sure that's a real issue.
Yeah.
You can always add a subtitle at the top of the MD file, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so you can make it look like you've extended the title. But what I think is really important is that there's consistency between the table of contents ordering and the document ordering, and to make it automatic. So I think we should just establish a practice of numbering the sections from 01, 02, and so forth. And that should be consistent, because it's also be good to be consistent across repository, across documents within our repository, right?
Yep. It makes sense.
But yeah, this is great.
I have a question about images. When I add images to my repositories, I use Git LFS, the large file storage, so that they don't get replicated every time I do a new commit. But when you create a web page, when you create a repository that want to be published in GitHub page, you can't really do that, because otherwise you have to add the image directly in the repository, because otherwise GitHub page can't retrieve the image from the LFS storage.
Right.
How does your workflow deal with image? Do they have to be directly in the repository, or can they be stored in a LFS space?
Right. So my understanding is that like if you have worked with HTML files, like there's a tag called img, and it has a property called src, or the source. And with HTML files, basically when you add the source, it doesn't matter if it's on the internet, if it's on the GitHub or anywhere else, as long as it's accessible to public, HTML would be able to read that file and add it to your website. So I'm not sure about GitHub LFS large files, but as long as it's accessible by public, I think you would be able to get it.
Okay.
Sounds very flexible. I just want to say, I think this is really great, Sajad, really nice work. I'd like to encourage everyone in the lab to take advantage of this. And, while this is still fresh in your mind, and Sajad's here and can help you and is going to provide this document, just go in and create your own project and start populating a web page for your project. I wouldn't wait till it's all finished, right? You can keep this, you don't have to make it public, right? It could be internal to the lab. And, that way you can kind of keep track of your project as it goes. And you can make it public, even if it's not finished, if you want to talk about what you're doing, as long as you don't reveal anything. You don't want to pre-publish your results. But, and then you'll get kind of used to the process, right? Like in your work going forward, you're going to be wanting to do something like this, right? So once you get used to doing it, I'm sure, I know if I had to do this, it would take me a lot of time to do it the first time, but then once I got used to it, I probably it would be quite efficient. So, I mean, everybody here has a project they could instantiate. And once you're used to that, then it'd be relatively easy to update it with your new results. Okay. Really cool. Any other comments or questions from the other folk here? Okay, that's a great contribution, Sajad. Thank you. All right. So, the link that you put in the chat didn't seem to work for me.